Good morning. In today's tutorial session, we will be covering Tutorial 3 of CZ2004. Before we move on to our first question, let's look at what ethnography is. Ethnography is the systematic study of people and cultures, and ethnographic study is useful for understanding how users would interact with the interface of your applications. The Hofstede's cultural dimension model is useful for ethnographic study. In particular, it consists of 6 aspects, namely, power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long versus short-term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint. Let's now look at an example of using this model to understand how users respond to online hotel reviews. In this research, the authors found that American travelers are more individualistic compared to Singaporean travelers. Further, travelers from individualistic cultures tend to base their adoption decision more on a personal and frank assessment of the utilitarian value of the online hotel review. In this slide, we show an example of how to improve on the design of a mobile application. A feedback session with German team managers of Travelbird reveals that in Germany, users value exact numbers, and due to the variance of driving speed on German roads, it was more appropriate to present to users the kilometers driven rather than the number of hours traveled. There are usually 4 steps involved in an ethnographic observation study. Can you name them? The 4 steps are preparation, field study, analysis, and reporting, and they are usually executed sequentially in the specified order. The preparation step involves the following: understanding policies in work environments and family values in homes, familiarizing with the existing interface, setting initial goals and question preparation, obtaining permission to observe or conduct interview. In the field study step, we establish rapport with all users, observe or interview users in their settings, and collect data. Then, we follow up with leads and also record the visits. In the analysis step, the data are compiled and quantified. Statistics are generated and the data are interpreted. Thereafter, goals and processes are refined. In the reporting step, we have to consider multiple audiences and goals. A report is typically prepared to present the findings. The second question is related to lo-fi and hi-fi prototyping. Why do we prototype? Prototypes are especially important for usability testing as they are designed to find flaws in user interfaces. They can also support confirmation of progress and specific recommendations for changes. Last but not least, they can speed up projects and reduce cost. Can you describe the difference between lo-fi and hi-fi prototypes? The key difference lies in the level of details of these 2 types of prototypes. In particular, lo-fi only sketches the most important ideas in an artistic way. In contrast, hi-fi looks exactly like the final product with all details fully specified. When should a lo-fi prototype be used and when is a hi-fi prototype preferred? Lo-fi is used in an early stage of project development. Since it does not require any programming or implementation skills, it can be quickly generated and evaluated to find improvements via several quick iterations. In contrast, hi-fi mimics the final product and is usually generated using software tools or programming. Further evaluations of hi-fi is achieved through iterations. We move on now to the third question, which is related to evaluation. Describe the term evaluation during active use. Evaluation during active use is performed after an interface is published to real users. Feedbacks and suggestions from users are actively collected. Improvements are then planned and executed by developing team to continuously improve the interface. Another term that is commonly used interchangeably is continuous feedback. In this slide, we show 3 examples of this evaluation strategy. The first example is data logging. Major companies and products usually have a user experience option for data logging, such as usage pattern logging in Google Chrome. The second example is interviews and focus group discussions. The developer will usually invite the users for discussion in order to collect comments to improve the products. The third example is online or telephone consultants such as Windows Remote Assistance, in which a remote connection is established with the users in order to provide help or collect user usage patterns and feedbacks. We have now come to the last question of today's tutorial, which is also related to evaluation. In the lectures, we discussed about 5 commonly used strategies for the evaluation of user interfaces. Can you list them? The first of these strategy is expert review, which is presented to experts or customers to seek opinions. The second strategy is usability labs. These labs provide an environment where users are studied interacting with a system for the sake of evaluating the system's usability. Such labs typically have a testing room and an observation room. Next, we have questionnaires and surveys. The fourth strategy is acceptance testing. In particular, we are testing for explicit acceptance criteria. The goal is not to detect flaws but to verify adherence to requirements. The final strategy is continuous feedback, which we have touched on earlier in the previous tutorial question. Now, use a chart to organize important contents inside the evaluation of user interfaces. How does your chart look like? In this slide, you see an example of how the contents can be organized in a tree diagram. The root node is the evaluation strategy, and the next level of the tree shows the 5 different evaluation strategies we covered earlier. For each of these strategies, such as expert review, you can list down additional points related to them. Such organizational charts are a useful way for summarizing contents learned in lectures and for revision. You can grow the chart here to include more details such as definition, pros and cons of the various strategies. This brings us to the end of the tutorial. Thank you for viewing, and feel free to contact me should you have further queries.